Thank you so very much, Susan. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm Scott Shackelford. I have the privilege of being the chair of the Cybersecurity Risk Management program here at IU, which is a collaboration between the Luddy School, the Kelly School, and the Maurer School, joining forces. And I'm also the executive director of the Ostrom Workshop. And I'm joined by someone who needs no introduction, but Kim, would you like to give one anyway? Oh, I think you might still be muted, Kim. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I am Kim Milford. I am the executive director with the REN ISAC, which is housed at Indiana University. And I'm always looking for opportunities to partner with my colleagues at Indiana University. And anytime I can partner with Dr. Shackelford, I'm happy to, because he's an excellent presenter. So we have some fun, and hopefully this will be informative. It's a great project that we're interested in talking about.
Indeed, indeed. And happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month, everyone.
Yes.
We have a bit of a tag team approach here. And what we thought we might do is I could just offer a little bit of table setting up front to kind of tee up this particular internship experience that we'll be talking about. And then Kim can do justice to the terrific work, of course, done by, or at least one facet of the terrific work done by the REN ISAC here, and what the experience has been like with working with these interns from their perspective. Lovely. So let's go ahead and dig in. It comes as no surprise, of course, that there is a massive talent pipeline shortage when it comes to cybersecurity positions that are unfilled. Estimates are all over the place. I've seen in the low single-digit thousands toward 10,000 plus here in Indiana alone. And of course, when you multiply that nationwide, it quickly grows to hundreds of thousands or potentially even millions of unfilled positions, which look to only explode in coming years. So clearly we need to do more to address this pipeline. And I'm happy to report that because of terrific work, such as that being done by the REN ISAC and CACR and OmniSoc, there are now more and more opportunities for students to get the type of opportunities they need to apply their skill sets, hone their crafts, and be ready to go when they enter the workforce then. And just on that point, if I may, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well, Kim. But there is a special roundtable discussion that we'll be hosting during the Indiana Statewide Cybersecurity Summit on Monday, where representatives from IU and IUPUI and Purdue and Notre Dame on a special panel that will be moderated by Shatrice Mosley from the Indiana Executive Council on Cybersecurity. We'll be talking about how each university is addressing this really pressing talent pipeline shortage. But Kim, did you have any thoughts along these lines before we continue?
I was just going to say, anecdotally, I've seen more people leaving in the past 12, 18 months than ever before. And most of them are going to just different opportunities, maybe private, maybe at a new university. And it's all good, and it's step forward in progress. But, we are seeing this labor shortage really impact everyone.
Absolutely. So even if, a small business or a local government would have, the funding to hire, a professional in this way, good luck, since there is a negative unemployment rate, which makes, I think, frankly, the types of applied experiences, these internships, the cybersecurity clinics, et cetera, that much more important, because that's a way to get help, at least as a stepping stone. So I don't need to tell you, talk about preaching to the choir, that cyber threats are only becoming, more acute, more sophisticated. We had a special presentation from Rob Herzog, an FBI supervisory special agent, just a few weeks ago, who was making, I think, the interesting point that we've seen a bit of a pivot, especially in the last year or so, away from phishing to a reliance more on even just zero-day exploits to get into systems, which of course puts the defenders, who are already facing a significant dilemma, in an even tougher position. It's perfect timing, since today also happens to be a major White House summit, global summit on ransomware mitigation. We've, of course, seen those same trends play out here in Indiana, and just anecdotally as well, Kim, through the cybersecurity clinic, we've been able to help out a variety of local governments. Currently, one of our clients is actually the city of Carmel, on ransomware mitigation. So there's just a huge need there generally, and in specific sectors like healthcare in particular, which is, of course, even more concerning during a global pandemic. And the whole attack surface as well is, I don't need to tell you, just rapidly expanding during the pandemic, during this expanded work from home era, which is just putting these trends toward the Internet of Things into hyperdrive in a lot of ways. Anything else to add there, Kim?
Healthcare is a major target right now. And we've seen the first lawsuit come through on an individual's death that is being attributed to a ransomware attack. So we're seeing that environment change rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, indeed. Yeah, that was horrific. And not that long ago, unfortunately.
Right.
So no, obviously the stakes couldn't be higher. That's absolutely right. And what were, abstract concerns about lost intellectual property or maybe PII going out the window now, as you say, Kim, have real life and death consequences here. And this is somewhat related. We're involved, IU is, with Purdue and the Indiana Department of Health on a project with Deloitte right now to survey clinics around the state of Indiana to see how what they're doing basically in response to pressing issues like ransomware mitigation. And the idea is to design training to help address those gaps going forward. So keeping with the theme of the panel of making sure that we break down these barriers as much as possible within universities and between universities and with other communities. Just wanted to mention that briefly. To give you a sense for how some of this is playing out, here in Indiana, then we'll move on and talk about this specific program and the internships. We did this project for the Indiana Executive Council on cybersecurity last year, called State of Hoosier Cybersecurity 2020. And this was a bit of a snapshot that was done in partnership with the Indiana Secretary of State's office, which means that this survey, and there were a number of folks at CACR, throughout OVPIT, I think even you, Kim, were involved at one point in looking at this questionnaire, yes. Went out to thousands of potential respondents around the state, and we got about a 10% response rate, which, as you know, for cybersecurity surveys, it's not great, nothing to sneeze at though. So take these results with a grain of salt. But it was interesting, I think, because this is one of the first snapshots we have of what we're doing in response to these cyber attacks and what some trends look like that we've seen play out anecdotally, like cyber risk insurance, which is now driving some of our other programming, like a series we're doing last week and this week for state level policymakers and their staffs around cyber risk insurance. So as you see here, it's a classic good news, bad news tale of, 95%, for example, of these respondents either being somewhat or very concerned about cyber risks. And interestingly, there was a little bit of a difference between critical infrastructure and non-critical infrastructure organizations you see there in terms of how often they reported being breached. So there could be some benefits to, for example, ISAC membership. Preaching to the choir there, Kim. You might have some thoughts along those lines. But we're hoping to do, a follow-up survey, fingers crossed, post-pandemic in 2022, and to replicate this effort. And we're talking with representatives now from Arizona and Texas to get a series of these state-level snapshots and see how they're changing over time and how that informs questions like what's a reasonable cybersecurity, what are these gaps, and how can universities help address them? Any quick reactions there, Kim, before we move on?
Yeah, a couple thinking about issues thinking about that. First of all, I think the critical infrastructure organizations are more attuned to finding incidents, whereas the non-critical infrastructure, they often hear about it from external sources, law enforcement generally, or groups like the REN-ISAC that we tell, we inform people. So the critical infrastructure is a little more tuned in. And they don't really have standards for critical infrastructure. We're seeing a lot of talk about that in Washington, and I would say informally that there are standards that we see what everyone else is doing and then repeat that because they're having success with multi-factor authentication. Now we're having success with multi-factor authentication. So there's always a little bit of that going on with our critical infrastructure orgs.
Absolutely. Yep, I could not agree more. And this is just one last, bit of a finding. It was interesting, I thought, to see what the risk mitigation tools that were being used by a lot of these respondents. And I was surprised, for example, that 60% were purchasing cyber risk insurance. So there was a heck of a lot of confusion about what was covered, what wasn't, what exclusions were there. And, the main response for why they didn't do more is just frankly a lack of awareness about what the core cybersecurity best practices should be. Where should they be putting that next dollar of investment? Should it be in multi-factor end-to-end encryption or a new cyber hygiene training program, whatever it might be, which is why I think the work that CACR does and the security principles is just so vital, frankly, as well, of course, Kim, as the work of the REN-ISAC and all our affiliated organizations there.
Yeah, it's hard to prioritize because it all needs to be done.
Indeed, I could not agree more. That's it. And then just briefly, then I'll fully, hand things over here to Kim, who has a far more interesting part of this presentation. The program that I'm responsible for is this cybersecurity risk management program, and it's relatively new still. It's only been around 4 years, and it was IU's first ever triple school masters. So we had no idea where to put it, and it wound up getting housed under the University Graduate School. Happy to say it's no longer our only triple school masters, with curatorship and quantum information systems coming behind us. But it is a pretty unique program in that way. And we've tried to build in as many opportunities to really have the students be able to distill the interdisciplinary training that they're getting around the technical, legal, and business aspects of cybersecurity risk management, and allow them to really work with clients through the Cybersecurity Clinic itself, which was launched back in 2019, thanks to funding from the Hewlett Foundation and the Indian Economic Development Corporation, which is focused on protecting local critical infrastructure, and through something called the IU Cyber Peace Internship Program, which is what allows us to partner with the REN-ISAC. And this is a fun opportunity because it allows our graduate students to be housed in organizations so we sometimes wouldn't otherwise be able to house them. And they're able to get paid, which is fantastic, of course, all around for their work. And they've been able to help out a huge range of different organizations, from Wonder Lab to the Indiana Health Information Exchange, to the REN-ISAC, even international NGOs, which has been wonderful to see, like the Cyber Peace Institute itself in Geneva. I'm happy to answer other questions about the program itself. It continues to evolve like any program. There's some new applied offerings like Hacking for Defense, which we're doing in partnership with Luddy, of course, and the Hamilton Luger School, so that it's open to students from a variety of different degree programs here, which has been neat to see. And we're always on the hunt for new internship opportunities and new ways to engage, either on capstones or through the Cybersecurity Clinic itself. So if you have ideas, if your organization you think would like to participate in one of these opportunities, just please reach out. I'll put my email in the chat box in just a moment here. The Cybersecurity Clinic itself, as I said, very new. And the internship program, the Cyber Peace Internship, is really an outgrowth of it. Because what we've found is oftentimes, the students worked with a community like Speedway, Indiana, for example. For a few months, they're able to help address some low-hanging fruit issues. Like in this case, there were some SCADA vulnerabilities that were concerning. There was a privacy policy that needed to be updated. We're working with the Indiana Bar Foundation right now on updating their incident response plan, things like that. But frequently that work just needs to continue after the term is done, which is why this internship program has really been invaluable to allow students to continue working with these organizations. And we've already seen it in some cases even lead to permanent job opportunities, like with MISO, which has been wonderful. So that's just a little bit about the clinic. We now run it every fall and spring. There's a teaching team that's led by Rachel Dockery. Sid Bowes is a senior associate at ICE Miller in Indianapolis, and he just joined the team as an adjunct as well. And the core focus of the clinic, as I said, is on helping critical infrastructure, which is why this partnership with the REN-ISAC, I think, has been so beneficial all around. So I'm not sure if you have any thoughts there, Kim, and otherwise it's just over to you.
No, I'll take it and we'll just keep moving.
Fantastic.
So a little bit about REN-ISAC. First of all, let me go back because Scott and I just touch base, I don't know, every month or so. We're chit-chatting about something. And, I encourage you to do that with people involved in cybersecurity or who have an interest in cybersecurity, even if they don't have a job in cybersecurity, because you might find some nice partnerships or just some great ideas and be able to take it and run with it. And that's exactly what happened with the Cyber Peace interns. So it's been exciting to see, and I know there's future development and opportunities there. So this is a little bit about who we are, the REN-ISAC. We are a membership coalition and with focus on sharing information around information security and incident response specifically. We have about 700 member institutions and about 3,000 individuals who participate. And these are some of our just general products and services that we work on, that we always have going on. And we participate in the National Council of ISAC. So there's an ISAC for all the critical sectors of the infrastructure, as well as some subsectors. And we're actually a subsector. R&E is a subsector of the public sector. So, we're just a little piece of it. But we are at the table with the National Council of ISACs and constantly learning about their issues and working with them. Next slide, please. So just a little bit, I've got a few just quick sort of heavy hitters on what we're seeing and what it means. What do? We analyze, we share information and analyze it. So these are some of the analysis that we're heavily involved in now, some of the big threats that we're working on. The supplier third-party attacks, we saw the first one was SolarWinds, and shortly after that we had Kaseya. We're going to keep seeing those. First of all, those took years to develop and set in motion. So we're seeing them now, but they actually have been in process for quite some time, and they were wildly successful. So we're going to keep seeing that. And it bothers my sense of rightness, right? That they take the things that we trust and need from those vendors and they turn it and make it bad. So we've got to get our arms around this, and I don't know how. Maybe you have some ideas, Scott, but it's just really killing my vibe here.
Oh yeah.
Credential compromise is ongoing. We see that it's as recurrent as phishing attacks now, and they'll steal the credentials and they'll use them for whatever. They have multiple ways to sell it or exfiltrate data, even get university discounts with your .edu account. So it's, they see that as a real profit machine and they keep doing it. The same as ransomware. Ransomware is all about the profit. So there's some really nice work. The CISA FBI one I mentioned here on the Conti ransomware, and they've done some additional work on that. So I highly recommend any of their recent publications on ransomware from those two groups. I think they're very mature and helpful. So take a look at those if you're looking for ideas of stopping ransomware, or you want to collect more information about ransomware, do some threat hunting around it. It's a great place. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the recent attacks on cybersecurity, geopolitical issues, we can't separate that from what we see in the attacks. That sometimes it's the driver for the attack, sometimes it's the driver for why that criminal organization is looking for more money. Sometimes it's a target or a lure. So they might know that this is going on geopolitically, and so they use that to get you to click on a campaign, a phishing campaign, for instance. So we don't want to minimize that either. Scott, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, this is, yeah, completely agreed. No, no surprise there, Kim. And we've passioned some projects around each of these issues. I mentioned ransomware a moment ago. The geopolitical issue, I think, is just so front of mind as well, as you said. I was sitting at the White House today, and that's why I've been really happy to see, for example, here at IU, the Hamilton Luger School, really step up with its geopolitical offerings and a very successful new BS in cybersecurity and global policy. And we're working a lot on the supply chain security front as well. I'm remembering a project we did with Crane last year where the students, surveyed CMMC in response to, SolarWinds and tried to figure out some ways it needs to be tweaked, right, going forward, so we don't keep running afoul of these same types of issues again and again. Easier said than done, but it's again, one of those great opportunities that if you seek out these partnerships and be proactive, I think it's just kind of a win-win all around.
Thanks. Next slide. Actually, let's skip on. I'm going to skip to, because I want to get to some time to talk about the interns. So let me skip on. Oh, did
I might have
get the right slide in here?
Let me find, this might be an old version. I apologize for that. Let me see if I can.
No worries. I can start talking through it.
Yeah, please.
So we had the opportunity to bring 4 of these cyber peace interns on this fall, and it's been real exciting. We had 2 projects for them, so they're on teams of 2. One of the projects is on looking at SANS Institute's NetWare service offering, which is a gamification of security learning. And then the other group is looking at incident response across higher ed or research and education. So they've been able to kind of delve in deep on these. Their reports are due at the end of of October. So they all say they're over halfway done, which is what I wanted to hear. They're a great group. They're all working on their masters in the cyber risk program that Scott introduced earlier. And so that, they come to us with some great knowledge and savviness, I would say, and are applying that. So I asked them, well, what are you learning? How has this been beneficial to you? And the guys working on the net gaming said that they are learning to decipher network packets and practices and trends. That their Linux command skills have gotten better. So they are really, truly learning firsthand on this. The folks working on the incident response piece say they've gotten better at communicating with executives. And they were really surprised to see the variances at different organizations for budgeting and operations, that they thought that we were all kind of one size fits all. We're all in the same business, right? So they thought, well, everyone's going to have a staff of this big and have all this money. And then they go to the smaller institutions and they might only have 2 cybersecurity staff and everyone else is in their network department doing it part-time. So it was a great learning for them. They're enthusiastic. It sounds like they all want to continue in cybersecurity, which is absolutely what we want. So we're trying to give them that real life example and show how they can make a big difference. And we're going to get these reports. I'll talk to them about how willing they are to share the reports once I see them. But like I said, they're coming at it from a real mature perspective. So I think that we'd be able to share those pretty broadly, and there's a lot of learnings for everyone. And then the last thing they said is, and maybe they were just catering to me, right? But they said, oh, well, the importance of REN ISAC, we keep hearing how important REN ISAC is, and the ISACs in general. So of course, I love to hear that, because we want them to feel like they're part of that solution, and we want to make sure we're making a difference to our members and to the public at large. Any thoughts or discussion on that, Scott?
That's just so great to hear, because that's exactly what we were hoping for from this program being launched, Kim. So that's music to the choir. I love it. Good. And like you said, I'm glad we're doing this a few weeks before you see their final product. So we'll assume the best.
And we've had a small but growing stable of interns at the REN ISAC, because we believe that we are in a unique position to create some opportunities for them. My staff probably gets tired of me saying, let's get an intern to do that. Let's get an intern to do this. But I just see so much value in the program, and bringing someone with maybe a shorter term but focused vision is really helpful. For instance, last year we brought an intern in to do to help us with American Disability Act, redoing our website, our public website. And she just went on and on. She learned so much during the process. She stayed with us as an hourly worker once her internships ended, and now she's gone on to a career that utilizes those skill sets. So that one wasn't cybersecurity related, but it's going to help us all in how we go about with information technology and moving forward in a way that helps. That's very helpful for our diverse and varied staffers and audiences. So that's a great example too.
It's wonderful, Kim.
I think that's it.
Did you want me to go back to this, or?
Yeah, this is kind of, might as well, right? This is kind of how we think about things. That because I constantly get in if we're responding constantly, how do we marry that with our other efforts to protect and prevent? And sometimes it feels like we're not going to prevent it. Actually, most of the time, I would say we're not going to prevent a big attack that is tailored and targeted against a given victim, because the prowess and the availabilities and abilities of the bad actors are just so high right now. So you do have to look at this holistically, and I really like this this idea, the way that this is laid out, that you minimize your attack surface. So if there is an attack, where they're hitting, you've got it really tightened down. You know that you still need to rapidly detect, contain, and respond to incidents, and those could all be their own bullet. They could all be their own presentation. So you know, this is definitely minimizing it a little bit, just in summary. So I'll just leave it, but this is a really helpful chart for how we think about it.
Well, I completely agree, Kim. And fantastic. I think we got, oh, did you want to, because I think we skipped through this earlier as well, since I had an old version up.
This is let me just say on this screen, actually the one before, can you go back one?
Oh, sure. Oh, this one.
There should be another, okay, maybe I didn't include it. This is the malware that we saw in the second quarter of the fiscal year. I'm sorry, the first quarter of the fiscal year, because we enter our quarter in June. So this is very recent activity. And so these are the notifications we sent out to anyone with a .edu address who had these exploits. And this is after they've been exploited. This isn't we just scanned you and found you. This is we're pretty sure you've been popped by this. So then I tried to provide a bit of a type, although there's so much crossover with the types anymore, that's very hard to do. That we see ransomware used for botnets. We see, you know, C2 used for everything. So that's harder to do. But I think the interesting thing on this to me is the discovery year. When you look at these, some of them are very old, and they're still sitting out there unpatched. So you know, Configur's, well, yeah, Configure goes back to 2008, so it's a great example. We sent out 256 notifications in a quarter. Did we send, and we sent out just as many, if not more so, the quarter before that? Were they the same hosts, or are we seeing this constantly pop up? These also died quite a bit during COVID because people weren't turning on their work machines. They were just working from home, and they were going through their home ISP. So now we're seeing those start coming back up. So this is again, the activity is growing.
Excellent.
Hey guys, with only a couple of minutes left, do you guys have an audience question?
Yes.
Anonymous asks, are internships available to international students as well?
They certainly are through the IU Cyber Peace, you know, internship program. We have a lot of international students in that program. You're right. Perhaps the question might be referring to perhaps maybe necessary security clearances, working with an organization like Crane, but that's usually the exception rather than the rule. So no, certainly it would be open to international students in this particular program, but I'm not sure, Kim, if you wanted to speak to NISAC more generally.
Yeah, there are ways we can keep people separate from the more confidential information, and you know, we're happy to do it. So please feel free to contact me and we can talk about it.
And one thing I just wanted to mention too, because I know there's, you know, representatives from lots of different universities, lots of different organizations on the line right now. One thing we're working on, and it's still pretty early days, is standing up a national association of universities that have cybersecurity clinics and those that kind of aspire to them. So the other kind of key stakeholders so far are Berkeley, Ann Cleveland there, and Larry Susskind at MIT, and the University of Alabama as well. And we have a peace and law fair coming out, I think, another week or so, that's going to kind of make the case for these cybersecurity clinics. And the goal is to have an actual repository, as Kim was referring to earlier, kind of generalized guidance for different types of organizations that the students themselves will have created. So I think that's going to be, you know, a neat opportunity to allow more organizations who want to do these kind of things we're describing to not have to reinvent the wheel. So I wish I could share the URL right now with all of you, but it's not quite ready yet. But as I said, that piece will be coming out soon, and we hope to launch the site within the next month or two.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, I was surprised how quickly this has gotten some traction, for sure. So
anything else?
Yeah, Susan, any other questions that did you see, or? That's
it so far.
Okay, so it looks like we only have 2 minutes left, everybody. So if there's any other final questions, happy to take them. Otherwise, Kim, any kind of final thoughts from you before we have to close here?
No, just to say that we hope to increase our internship program and find more ways to give folks this great experience and participate with those in the classroom. Like I said, they're enthusiastic and engaged, and look at things from a slightly different perspective than a cynical old security professional like myself. So I'm certainly having them around, even virtually, has been a great boon to us.
Absolutely. And Susan, I did see just one other question come in about enrollment. And right now we have, I'm going to get the specific number wrong, but right around 120 students in the cyber risk management MS program. But there's lots of other great MS programs around IU, including secure computing at Luddy, information systems, at Kelly. We're always working on new collaborations and new dual degrees. So any interested students, I'd encourage them to reach out, and I'll put my email address again in the chat box, and happy to help direct. And we have new opportunities like CyberCore, where we can actually get your degree paid for as well. So thanks again for the opportunity, Susan.
I'm afraid that's the last question we can take, but maybe Scott and Kim will hang on for a minute and answer their last question in text.